Hi, David L.A. Rossin here. I love food, food law, and food science. Those kind of things I really enjoy. So I made this YouTube channel just to share as much content as possible with you. There have been several incidents in the transportation related area that's created some failures in the last decades, 2, 3 decades, that have really highlighted the need for stricter regulations. Ultimately, leading to the Sanitary Transportation and Human Food Regulation. Of course, it covers animal food as well. So it goes by 21 CFR 1 Subpart O, or Title 21 1 Subpart O. While no single event directly led to the regulation, a series of issues and trends in the food industry demonstrated that transportation played a critical role in food contamination and foodborne illness. Some of the key factors contributing to the regulation were, first off, foodborne illness outbreaks linked to transportation. Temperature abuse during transportation was a significant issue. If we look at it, it is a significant issue, especially for perishable products like meat, dairy, seafood. Inconsistent or improper refrigeration during shipping allows for things like harmful bacteria like Listeria and Salmonella and E. coli, contributing to several foodborne illness outbreaks. Another area of concern would be contamination from unclean vehicles and equipment. Prior to the regulation, food was often transported in trucks that were not properly cleaned between loads. In some cases, food products were transported in the same vehicles that had previously carried non-food items like chemicals or animal feed even, leading to cross-contamination. In 1994, there was ice cream and salmonella, and it created quite a scare. One of the more notable ones, as I previously mentioned, in 1994, salmonella was linked to ice cream. It was later determined the contamination was caused by ice cream mix being transported in a tanker truck that had previously carried raw eggs. The inadequate cleaning and sanitation of the truck resulted in the contamination of the ice cream, and it led to a whopping 224,000 foodborne illnesses. Now, seafood transport is a big problem as well. The seafood industry faced recurring issues with temperature abuse during transport, leading to spoilage. Spoilage for fish a lot of times leads to something called scombrotoxin poisoning or histamine. It's a decomposition-related temperature abuse. Improper handling and refrigeration practices throughout the supply chain underscore the need for tighter controls. But our food supply chain is getting far more complex. As the food industry globalized and food supply chain became more complex, the transportation of food over long distances across states or even international became more common. This created new risk as products were subject to temperature fluctuations, extended periods of time in transit, and inadequate transit tracking systems, all increasing the risk of contamination. These recurring failures led to the establishment of the regulation, and safety risks from these failures demonstrated the vulnerability of food and the supply chain during transportation. The Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA, was passed in 2011. It was developed in response to these and other safety challenges. The Sanitary Transportation, Human and Animal Food Regulation was one of the 7 major rules, sometimes called pillars, of FSMA, specifically aimed at addressing the weaknesses in the food transport and that had been contributing to food safety problems. The regulation was finalized in 2016, was designed to ensure that shippers, carriers, loaders, receivers all implemented preventive measures to avoid these types of transportation failures, ultimately protecting consumers from foodborne illness. Welcome to my class and introduction to sanitary transportation, human and animal food, 21 CFR 1, Subpart O. All right, I kind of divided it up into 9 different slides. We'll call them modules. I've got an introduction for you coming your way. It's going to repeat some of the stuff I just shared already. We'll go back through it one more time. We're going to move into module 1 and look at potential food safety problems, because that's why we're doing this anyway. We're trying to prevent foodborne illness. We're trying to prevent outbreaks. So module 2, basic sanitary transportation practices. Module 3, responsibilities of the carrier. Module 4 will actually look at the general provisions. Module 5, Vehicles and Transportation Equipment. Module 6, Transportation Operations. Module 7 will look at the training requirements and finish up with Module 8. What are the record-keeping requirements for this thing? Again, welcome to the class 21 CFR 1 Subpart O. Let's get this going. So remember, as I previously mentioned, this regulation stems from the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA. It was signed into law in 2011 by President Obama, which was a landmark shift in food safety practice in the United States. It really updated the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which had really hadn't had any major changes since 1936, if I'm not mistaken. The FSMA regulation, or FSMA Act, the Act of Congress, gave FDA more authority, gave them authority to focus more on preventing food safety issues, rather than merely responding to outbreaks after they occur. So before FSMA, the transportation of food was largely an overlooked part of the food safety components. Contamination that occurred during transport often went unnoticed or even unregulated. For example, poorly cleaned trucks, temperature abuse during transportation, and improper loading practices could lead to foodborne illnesses. In response, the FDA developed the Sanitary Transportation Rule under FSMA. The final rule, issued in April 2016, set comprehensive guidelines that mandated proper transportation practices, addressing key concerns such as vehicle and equipment sanitation, and ensuring that transportation equipment is properly cleaned and sanitized. Looking at temperature controls, monitoring and controlling temperatures to prevent spoilage, and in training requirements, ensuring that personnel involved in food transport understand and implement food safety measures. These measures help reduce the risk of contamination during transport and ensure that both human and animal food reach their destination safely and in optimal condition. In this slide, I will address the various food safety risks that can arise during transportation. The focus is on common issues that lead to food contamination, spoilage, and other safety concerns. Proper control measures are essential during transportation to prevent these risks. So there's different types of hazards. You may or may not know about these, but let's take a look. There's hazards that go under the classification of biological hazards. There's chemical hazards and physical hazards. Let's dig in a little deeper. So biological hazards are pathogens, illness-causing organisms like Salmonella and E. coli and Listeria. They can contaminate food during transportation if conditions aren't properly maintained, if temperatures aren't managed, if cleanliness isn't managed. These microorganisms can thrive when food is held again at improper temperatures or when transported in unsanitary conditions, leading to foodborne illness and potentially outbreaks. Chemical hazards, such as chemical contamination that can occur through exposure to harmful substances like cleaning agents or pesticides even, or other chemical residues left in improperly cleaned vehicles or equipment. Another risk involves cross-contamination per previous cargo, especially if non-food items such as chemicals were transported without adequate sanitation afterward. And then there's things that are classified as physical hazards. These physical hazards refer to foreign objects in food, such as metal and plastic and glass, that can enter the food supply chain during transport. Poorly maintained vehicles, equipment, or mishandling during loading and unloading can introduce these contaminants into the food. A real-world example of a contamination was 1994 salmonella outbreak that I previously mentioned, linked ice cream to products that it was contaminated in transportation in a tanker truck that previously carried raw eggs. Raw eggs are associated with salmonella. This contamination led to 224,000 illnesses. Another example involves seafood transportation, where temperature abuse during transit resulted in histamine poisoning, illustrating the importance of maintaining proper temperature control. You see, histamine occurs when certain species of fish that have high levels of histidine, an amino acid. This amino acid breaks down when above 40 degrees by the aid of enzymes from hungry bacteria. So these examples demonstrate how failures in transportation can lead to significant food safety issues, reinforcing the need for strict adherence to safety practices, temperature controls, and proper vehicle maintenance. The goal of this module is to ensure that food safety is maintained during transport through the implementation of proper sanitary practices. We will cover key practices that must be followed to prevent food contamination, spoilage, and other safety hazards during transportation. So we're going to cover some best practices, like proper vehicle sanitation before loading. It's critical that transportation vehicles are cleaned and sanitized thoroughly before any food is loaded. This prevents cross-contamination from previous loads, which have carried non-food items or food products with things like allergens or even pathogens. Effective temperature control is very important. Maintaining appropriate temperatures throughout the transportation process is essential to prevent bacterial growth in perishable foods. Refrigerated trucks and temperature monitoring systems should be used for items that need cold storage, ensuring the food stays within the safe temperature range. You must separate raw and ready-to-eat foods. There should be clear separation between raw foods, such as raw meat or poultry, and ready-to-eat food during transportation. Cross-contamination, or commonly called, cross-contamination, is a major risk factor. If these items come into contact, especially with raw products, they can carry harmful pathogens that could contaminate ready-to-eat foods. So what are we going to do? We're going to inspect the transportation equipment regularly. We're going to make sure that our trucks, our containers, our refrigeration units are properly maintained and make sure there's no issues that could compromise food safety. We're going to make sure these inspections ensure the vehicles are in good working order, free of damage, and the sanitation procedures are being followed. We're going to make sure that we have appropriate packaging to prevent contamination. Proper packaging acts as a barrier to protect the food from physical, chemical, and biological contamination. Using sealed, durable containers and ensuring that the packaging is intact through transportation can minimize the risk of contamination. By following these basic sanitary practices, food businesses can significantly reduce the risk of foodborne illness and ensure that products are transported safely and hygienically from the source to the destination, from the boat to the throat, from the farm to the fork, from the tide to the tongue. Food safety is key. So in this module, let's look at the requirements and responsibilities of the carrier. It's to ensure that food safety is maintained during transportation by implementing sanitary practices. These practices are essential to prevent contamination, spoilage, and foodborne illness, protecting both consumers and businesses. Best practices: proper vehicle sanitation before loading. Transportation vehicles must be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized before the food is loaded. This is essential to prevent cross-contamination, where loads may have contained non-food items, allergens, or pathogens. Cleaning schedules and documentation should be maintained to ensure consistency and accountability. Effective temperature control. Key point to this is maintaining the correct temperature is critical, especially for perishable foods. Use refrigerated trucks and temperature monitoring systems to ensure foods like dairy, meat, and produce stay within safe temperature ranges. Uncontrolled temperatures can lead to rapid growth of bacteria such as salmonella or listeria, leading to spoilage, development of toxins, or other foodborne problems, creating a scenario for illness. Separation of raw and ready-to-eat foods. Always keep raw foods like meat, poultry, separate from ready-to-eat foods during transport. This prevents cross-contamination, a major risk that can occur if pathogens from raw foods come in contact with food that doesn't require further cooking. Use barriers or segregated compartments within the vehicles to maintain this separation. What preventative measures can you apply? Well, you should inspect transportation vehicles and equipment regularly. Conduct regular inspections of all transportation equipment, including trucks, containers, and refrigeration units. These inspections help identify and resolve any issue that might affect food safety, such as damaged equipment, malfunctioning refrigeration, or unsanitary conditions. Equipment should be in good working order and meet sanitation requirements for being used for food transport. Make sure to use appropriate packaging again to prevent contamination. Food should be packaged in sealed, durable containers to prevent exposure to physical, chemical, or biological contaminants. Proper packaging ensures that food is protected during loading, transit, and unloading. Check that all packaging is intact throughout the journey to avoid accidental contamination. By following these sanitary transportation practices, food businesses can greatly reduce the risk of contamination and foodborne illness. These steps ensure that products are transported safely and arrive at the destination in good condition, preserving both food quality and public health. All right, let's take a look at the general provisions. So the regulation under 21 CFR 1 Subpart O apply to all parties involved in the transportation of food, including carriers responsible for the vehicle and equipment used during transportation, shippers, entities responsible for arranging the transportation of the food, and receivers, the party that accepts the delivery and handles the food upon receipt. The goal is to ensure that the sanitary practices are maintained across the entire transportation chain, from the moment the food is loaded until it reaches its destination. What are the compliance requirements? All parties must comply with FDA regulations for the sanitary transportation of both human and animal food. These rules are designed to prevent food contamination during transport, whether in bulk containers like tanker trucks or in the form of liquids or grains, or in non-bulk containers and packets such as packaged foods. Specific requirements cover things like ensuring that the vehicle and equipment used is appropriate for the type of food being transported, maintaining proper temperature control, of course, for perishable foods, of course, adhering to safe and sanitary conditions throughout the process to avoid cross-contamination or even cross-contact or spoilage conditions. Certain small businesses may be subject to modified requirements under these regulations. For example, small carriers or businesses that ship smaller quantities of food may have reduced reporting or documentation requirements. However, even small businesses must follow basic sanitary practices to prevent contamination. The exemptions are designed to reduce the regulatory burden for small entities while still ensuring public health protection. These general provisions form the foundation for the sanitary transportation of human food regulation, ensuring that all parties in the food transport process play a role at maintaining food safety. Adhering to these provisions protects the consumer, minimizes the risk of foodborne illness, and helps companies comply with FDA regulations. Make sure you build a program that's in compliance with 21 CFR 1 Subpart O. All right, 21 CFR 1 Subpart O, looking at vehicles and transportation equipment. The design and maintenance is very important. Vehicles and transportation equipment must be designed with food safety in mind. The design should facilitate easy cleaning and sanitation, ensuring that there are no areas where food debris, contaminants, or moisture can accumulate. This is especially important to prevent cross-contamination from prior loads or harmful substances that could affect the safety of food being transported. The surfaces are very important, that they're smooth and non-porous, and removable components can enhance the ease of cleaning and sanitizing these vehicles and containers. Functionality is important. It's critical that the transportation units can maintain the appropriate environmental conditions for the food being transported. Temperature control is one of the most important aspects. This is particularly important for perishable foods such as dairy and meat and seafood, fresh produce. Humidity levels may also need to be controlled to prevent spoilage and growth of mold. For temperature-sensitive products, transportation units should be equipped with temperature recording devices to continuously monitor and document temperature levels throughout the journey. These devices can help verify that the cold chain has been maintained, reducing the risk of spoilage or contamination. Maintenance is very important. Regular inspections and cleaning schedules are critical to ensure the vehicles and equipment remain in good working condition and do not compromise food safety. Inspections should check for wear and tear, mechanical failures, or any signs of contamination could affect the safety of food. Cleaning schedules must be strictly adhered to, ensuring that all equipment is sanitized before new loads are transported. Maintaining a maintenance log is also recommended to track the inspections and cleanings. Make sure they're performed to ensure compliance with sanitation protocol. Properly designed and maintained vehicles and equipment are essential to ensuring the safety and sanitary transportation of food. By ensuring that equipment is easy to clean, proper temperature and environmental conditions are maintained, and that regular maintenance is performed, food companies can minimize contamination risk and comply with FDA regulations 21 CFR 1 Subpart O. Alright, so moving right along, I hope you're learning a little bit, just trying to, hopefully you dig in a little deeper where you need to, but we're going through some of the key components of the Sanitary Transportation Regulation. Module 6 looks at transportation operations. Pre-transportation checks will be important. The first step to ensuring food safety during transport involves pre-transportation checks to verify that all equipment is clean and ready for use. This includes inspecting the interior of the transportation unit for cleanliness, ensuring there is no residue from previous loads, and verifying that all sanitation protocols have been properly performed. Following the proper loading practices. Implementing proper loading practices is crucial to avoid contamination. Food should be loaded in a way that minimizes their exposure to potential contaminants. This includes using clean handling equipment, wearing protective gear, and avoiding contact between raw and ready-to-eat foods. Additionally, ensuring that the load is secure prevents shifting during transport, which can lead to package breaches and contamination. Continuous monitoring of conditions. Continuous monitoring is so important that we're monitoring environmental conditions, such as temperature and humidity. It's essential, particularly for perishable goods. This can help prevent spoilage, which could lead to scombrotoxin or histamine, and ensure food safety throughout the transportation process. Transportation controls. Don't be scared to use sensors or other activities like manual checks. Modern transportation operations usually have sensors to continuously monitor transportation activity or temperature and humidity while transporting. But manual checks may also be employed, especially in smaller operations or in cases where sensitive products are involved. These checks ensure that sensors are functioning correctly and the conditions remain within safe parameters sometimes. Documentation of adherence to safety practices. Keeping detailed records of transportation conditions and operation procedures is not just a regulatory requirement, it's also a best practice. If you don't have a record, you didn't do it. Documentation should include logs and pre-transportation checks, temperature and humidity readings, cleaning schedules, and any corrective actions taken during transport. This is essential for traceability, proving compliance with safety standards. Let's wrap this up. Ensuring that operational procedures and controls are properly implemented can significantly reduce the risk associated with food transportation. Regular reviews and updates to these practices, in light of new challenges and technologies, help maintain the highest standards for food safety, reflecting a proactive approach to quality and compliance. These detailed operation procedures and controls are essential for maintaining the integrity and safety of food during transport, crucial for ensuring that products reach consumers in the best possible condition. So what are the training requirements? Module 7. All personnel involved in food transportation must receive comprehensive training in sanitary practices to ensure food safety. This includes drivers, loaders, unloaders, maintenance staff, and anyone else handling food during transport. The goal is to ensure that everyone understands their role in preventing contamination and preserving the quality of food. So what should we cover? Well, food safety risks during transportation. Training should cover the specific risks associated with food transportation, including biological, chemical, physical hazards. Personnel need to understand how issues like improper temperature control, unclean equipment, cross-contamination during loading and transport can lead to foodborne illness or spoilage. Proper loading, handling, and temperature control. Proper loading techniques should be emphasized to prevent contamination, including the separation of raw, ready-to-eat foods, like ensuring clean handling practices. Temperature control procedures are critical for ensuring that perishable items are transported within the required temperature range to prevent bacterial growth and spoilage, which spoilage could lead to the growth of undesirable toxins. Personnel should be trained on the use of temperature monitoring systems, how to check temperature logs, and what actions to take if temperature deviations occur. So, how to identify and address contamination risk? Personnel must be able to identify potential contamination risk, such as damaged packaging, improper sealing of containers, or unsanitary equipment. Training should include what to do when contamination risks are spotted, such as initiating corrective action and reporting the issue to supervisors. Training must be conducted regularly. Frequency is so important to ensure that all personnel stay up to date on the latest sanitary practices and regulatory requirements. Initial training should occur when an employee is hired, followed by ongoing refresher courses. When there are new risks, regulatory changes, or updates to company procedures, additional training must be provided to ensure continued compliance and safety. Effective and ongoing training is a crucial component of maintaining food safety throughout transportation. By ensuring that all employees understand and follow best practices, companies can greatly reduce the risk of contamination and regulatory violations. Consistent training not only safeguards public health, but also strengthens a company's reputation for delivering safe, high-quality products. Regular, thorough training equips personnel with the skills and knowledge necessary to handle food safety during transportation, helping to prevent incidents of contamination and maintain compliance with FDA regulations like 21 CFR 1, Subpart O. Well, like I said before, if you ain't got a record, you didn't do it. Records and record-keeping requirements. Maintaining accurate and thorough records is essential for ensuring compliance with food safety regulations and for tracing food during transport. Records should document critical activities including cleaning and sanitation, procedures for vehicles and equipment, temperature control monitoring, especially for perishable and temperature-sensitive products. These records not only demonstrate that the proper sanitary practices have been followed, but also to help identify where issues may have occurred in food safety incident were to arise. Traceability is very important. There's going to be some heavy requirements on traceability coming up in 2026. So make sure you're ensuring traceability during transportation. It is key to food safety. If there's a contamination event or a product recall, records should enable tracking the food's movement through the supply chain. Detailed records of loading, transportation, and delivery allow quick identification of the affected products and help mitigate the impact of potential safety issues. Timeframes. How long do we got to keep these records? Records must be retained for a minimum of 12 months or longer, depending on the type of product and specific regulatory requirements. Some products, particularly those with long shelf lives or subject to different regulatory standards, may require records to be kept extended periods. Retaining records ensure that companies can respond effectively to any FDA inquiries, audits, or product recalls that may occur after the products have been delivered. Key points that we want to remember are regular audit and review of records is essential to ensure ongoing compliance with the FDA regulation and internal food safety protocol. Companies should implement a system to regularly review their transportation records to verify that cleaning and sanitation is happening, temperature monitoring is consistent and accurate, all required documentation is up to date and properly filed. This practice allows the identification of any gaps in compliance and opportunity to address issues before they result in a violation of food safety problems or a food safety problem. Companies must be prepared for an FDA inspection and audit of transportation records. These inspections may be prompted by routine checks or triggered by a food safety incident or recall. Having a well-organized record-keeping system that demonstrates compliance with sanitation, temperature control requirements, helps ensure a smooth audit process and avoids penalties or disruptions. Maintaining thorough and accurate records is a critical aspect of food safety and transportation. By keeping detailed logs of cleaning, sanitation, and temperature control activities, companies can ensure compliance, demonstrate traceability, and be ready for potential food safety FDA inspections. Regularly review and retention of records for required timeframes allow a company to identify and correct any potential issues before they become larger problems, thereby protecting the food supply chain and their business reputation. Effective record keeping not only supports regulatory compliance, but also serves as a proactive measure in protecting the food safety and the food that's being transported and ensuring a robust, traceable food transportation system. So I hope you learned a little bit. Thanks for coming by. Thank you for everyone for checking out my presentation, my YouTube channel. This one covers the sanitary transportation of human and animal food. If you like it, your time and attention are greatly appreciated. I hope the information provided helps you understand the importance of maintaining food safety during transportation. If you found my presentation helpful and would like to stay updated on more content related to food safety and regulatory compliance, I encourage you to subscribe or follow for future presentations and resources. By subscribing, you'll gain access to more in-depth information, updates on regulations, and best practices that can help you and your business stay compliant and protect consumers. Again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to providing more valuable content to help you navigate the world of food safety. Don't forget to subscribe and stay connected. Have a great day.